The psychological explanation of offending behaviour is split into four. We have Eysenck's theory, cognitive explanations, looking at level of moral reasoning and distortions, differential association, and psychodynamic. First of all, we start with Eysenck's theory of the criminal personality. Now, he is a social psychologist who was interested in offenders and why they decide to offend. And he was interested in this idea of a personality test. So here we can see high neuroticism, extroversion, introversion, and low neuroticism. And these are traits of individual's personality. And for him, there were traits that were more important than others when it came to offenders. So Hans Eysenck in the 40s then decided from his research, which we'll look at, that people who are extroverts and neurotic are likely to be a criminal. When you are someone who is extrovert, you are outgoing, you are sociable. If you're neurotic, you are controlling, you're manipulative. And he believed that these two principles, as well as being psychotic, which, the clue's kind of in the name, a little bit crazy, this is what makes a offender, this personality type. Now, he went a bit further and he said that people who are extroverts, he believed, had an underactive nervous system. So our nervous system is around like fight or flight. And if it was underactive, you are constantly seeking out enjoyment through being risky. So he kind of put two and two together. You're extrovert, you're looking for risk, you're probably neurotic and psychotic. This makes you an offender. Now, how did he get his data? How did he realise that these three personality traits were important? So him and his wife assessed 2,070 male prisoners. They compared it to a control group of, again, around 2,000 on the measures of extroversion, neuroticism and psychoticism. Prisoners recorded higher scores than the control group. So he said, well, there we go. People who are offenders have high levels of these three traits. Now, obviously from this, we can take away the fact that him and his wife did this, so we have researcher bias. We have a large sample, but they are all male. We've got a control group though, which is really good for comparison. And it's a questionnaire, it's a personality test. So we're going to see issues with self-report, validity, and generalizability. So these three things, two great films, The Shining and American Psycho, these three things make somebody a criminal. As well as that, socialization for him is really important. So his whole theory looks at biology via the nervous system, and it also looks at socialization. So if you have, really bad in terms of like your upbringing or your socialization isn't neurotypical, isn't what we would expect, then you might be taught to function on delayed gratification or immediate gratification. Now, what that means is that if you're somebody who wants something right now, you can't wait, you are seeking it immediately. So he would say that is quite an immature behaviour, which is likely what we would see with a criminal. So people who are highly extrovert and neurotic are hard to condition. They don't respond to antisocial impulses with anxiety. They're more likely to act out looking for risky behaviours to engage in, likely crime. So we've got a little task here. Which of the three cases most fits Eysenck's criminal personality? That's for you to have a look at. And then we delve into strengths and weaknesses. Now, like I've just said, how he obtained his data, he did. So we've got bias, gender bias, researcher bias. Other researchers have come along and reviewed, so meta-analysis, and found that prisoners reported high scores of psychoticism, but not extroversion or neuroticism. So we've got issues with internal validity for his personality type. Moffat said, actually, there are lots of different types of male offender based on when they first committed an offence, how long that offending has persisted. It's not just this personality type you have throughout your whole life, and that means you're going to offend. We have lots of types of offenders. And the fact that it is quite out of touch, we've got new modern theories like the 5-factor, which has additional traits on there from your personality, which means in this day and age, so we're not in the 40s anymore, additional characteristics mean that being highly extrovert and neurotic doesn't make offending inevitable. It's very deterministic to say you have these traits, you're going to offend. And lastly, we have culture bias. So we've got 2 researchers here looking at Hispanic and African American offenders, divided into 6 groups based on the history and nature of the offence. All the 6 groups were less extrovert than a non-criminal group. So maybe there is a cultural element that we need to consider when it comes to offending. So we're questioning generalisability. Maybe some imposed ethic from Eysenck. He has created what he thinks is the criminal personality. He's applying it to every culture. So we just have issues with how we generalise. And the last one here is it's built on the idea that it's possible to measure it through a test. So you can't quantify someone's personality to a number or to a score. So it's very reductive rather than being holistic. Then I've got in the booklet, I've got some research methods to try, and then along with a couple of AO2 questions to have a go at, and the answers on the next slide.